I am. I know. It's okay. It's because it's trying to read that. I think I got it now.
Good evening, everyone. Before we begin, I will ask that everyone please silence their cell phones and other electronic devices. And I'll just remind council that our procedure bylaw prescribes the use of technology during council meetings. It is 6:30 p.m. I'll call this council planning meeting to order, and I'll begin with this formal territorial acknowledgement. The Municipality of Brighton Council recognizes and acknowledges that we are on the traditional territory of the Mississauga, Anishinaabe, now of Alderville. The Mississauga peoples agreed through treaties with the Crown to mutual sharing obligations and responsibilities as stewards of the lands and waters. We recognize that these are now our shared obligations in partnership to continue to protect the land and the water that we now know as Brighton. In doing our work, Council honors the Indigenous ancestors who came before us and who continue to be present on these lands which we occupy. We acknowledge and honor the First Nations who continue to hold and share their rich history, traditions, and cultures that are proud, modern, and vibrant. As we move forward, we hope that every time we gather, we acknowledge all those who have come before us. Move on to the approval of the agenda with a motion moved by Councillor Wright, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that Council approve the June 16th, 2025 planning meeting agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion is carried. Members of council, have you any declarations of pecuniary interest? And if so, please state the general nature thereof. I will be declaring on item 6.4 in the statutory public meeting, as my home is immediately adjacent to 14861 Little Lake Road. The clerk will read a motion to choose a chair at that time for that portion of the meeting. We have no delegations listed this evening. That brings us to our statutory public meeting with a motion moved by Councillor McCausland, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon, that council move into the statutory public meeting June 16th, 2025 at 6:32 p.m. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. The Municipality of Brighton takes steps beyond the requirements of the Planning Act to engage the community in land use planning initiatives. The municipality also holds a statutory public meeting on the planning item and then receives a staff report with a recommendation on which council will make a decision. It is during this meeting that council depends on the community to provide input for our decision. This input may be received in advance of the statutory public meeting by sending correspondence to the clerk's office and/or by making an oral submission to council at the statutory public meeting. This will best inform council on the land use planning matter prior to council making our final decision. The province's regulations now limit appeal rights to only the applicant and specified regulated persons. For details or information on the new appeal process, please visit the municipal website or contact the clerk's office. The first item in our statutory public meeting is file 2025-100. The application is zoning bylaw amendment, file Z03-2025. And the address is 129 Elizabeth Street. The purpose of the public meeting is to address requirements under the Planning Act for hosting a public meeting before council makes a decision and to obtain public input towards making any decision on the proposed zoning bylaw amendment application. So, Mr. Warren, by what method and on what date was notice of this application given?
Through the chair, notice of the zoning bylaw amendment was provided in compliance with the statutory notice requirements under the Planning Act. A public notice sign was placed on the property on the 3rd of June, and notice was placed on the municipal website. Additionally, notice of the public meeting was mailed to all landowners within 120 meters of the subject lands on May the 21st.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. And would you please explain the purpose and reason for the subject application that's before council this evening?
Absolutely. Through the chair, the subject lands are currently zoned special highway commercial zone in the municipality of Brighton's zoning bylaw. The purpose of the subject application is to amend the zoning in order to allow the maximum height of a hotel to be 22.5 meters on the subject lands. The current zoning allows for the hotel use, but the highway commercial zone only permits a maximum height of 12 meters. The proponent has also applied to the municipality for site plan approval, application file number SP01-2025. And they have applied for a 4,300 square meter true Hilton hotel on the northeast portion of the subject lands. The proposed 6-story hotel includes 85 guest rooms, a pool, ground floor dining, surface parking, and enhanced landscape features along Elizabeth Street. Additionally, the proponent has also submitted a fill permit and fill management plan to the municipality, while these documents are currently being reviewed by staff to determine if they are complete. In following up with the site plan, I will note that off-site impacts are definitely one of the key elements that staff considers in processing site plan applications, especially since site plan process is not necessarily a public process involving notice to the public. This is the reason that staff had requested a shade analysis to accompany the site plan report. I will also note that a recent 2018, I believe it was, LPAT decision notes that there is no legal right to a view over another person's property, even if that parcel includes or is adjacent to water. The loss of a private view over another person's land is not considered a planning argument in the eyes of the tribunal. Finally, I will note that we did receive 4 items of correspondence from Sonia Rundle, Denise Rundle, Dave Rundle, and Janet Siriani. 3 of these were, one was mentioned in the staff report. The other 3 were received post printing of the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. Are there persons present who have questions or comments regarding the subject application? Come on up. There should be a list right there. If you could just write your name and any other pertinent information that the clerk's office is asking for.
Through the chair, I do have a presentation. My name is Kelsey Jones, and I am here on behalf of the applicants for the Elizabeth Street application. So I'm not sure if there's an ability to share that, so I can walk through that.
There it is.
Perfect. Excellent. Thank you, everyone. And as I mentioned, my name is Kelsey Jones. I'm a land use planner with FO10 Planning and Design in Kingston. I'm here on behalf of the applicants for the zoning bylaw amendment for Elizabeth Street. And I won't repeat much of what Mr. Warren has stated regarding the application, but more so just give a little bit more detail on the proposed building itself, as well as some of the shadow analysis that was completed. Next slide, please. Thank you. Just to start and to give a visual representation, so the subject property is outlined in black on the image on this slide, and the area of the proposed hotel is outlined in the red dashed line. So you will see that on the north side of Elizabeth Street, north of the property, there are single detached dwellings, and then there is a larger commercial property to the east with standalone buildings as well as surface parking. Next slide, please. Thank you. So Mr. Warren did already provide an overview of the application, but just to reiterate, the intent of this application is to permit a 6-story hotel in the northeast corner of the site. The existing site-specific highway commercial zone does already permit a hotel use on the property. The zoning bylaw amendment seeks to increase the permitted building height from 12 meters or approximately 3 stories to 22.1 meters or 6 stories in this case. And we are seeking a reduction in the number of loading spaces from the required 2 to 1. Next slide, please. So the next few slides that I have are just some renderings and elevations of the proposed building. So this image is a 3D rendering of the view of the building from what will be the on-site parking lot. This is a elevation view of the building from Elizabeth Street in more of a schematic form. And then these two views are the side elevations of the building. So the east view is on the left and the west view is on the right. So given that we are proposing a height increase for this hotel, we did evaluate the proposed shadowing that will be created. And although we did look at all 4 seasons in this presentation, we have provided the images for just the spring. And that's mainly because spring shadows are generally a pretty good tell of what shadow impacts may be. In the summer, there's less shadowing given where the sun is in the sky. There's not generally as much shadow being cast from development. And then in the winter, we're all aware, it's a pretty gloomy season, lots of cloud cover. If there are shadows, they're not as generally, long lingering because there's less sun coming through that season. So the images on this slide show existing buildings and dwellings in white and the shadows that they create in kind of that darker black gray color. And then the proposed hotel is in red with the proposed hotel shadows in yellow. So you will see that the hotel shadows do move quickly from east to west through the day. So 9 a.m. is in the top left corner, 1 p.m. is in the top right corner, and then the 2 images on the bottom are 4 p.m. on the left and 6 p.m. on the right. So they do move quickly across from west to east, and you'll notice that they don't encroach onto the north side of Elizabeth Street. They're either predominantly just on the street or on other properties, but they don't encroach onto the sidewalk on that north side of Elizabeth Street. And then next slide, please. Thank you. So just in summary, just to reiterate that the zoning bylaw amendment is for the proposed height of the hotel and the number of loading spaces, and that this application is consistent with the PPS, conforms to the county's and municipalities' official plans, and complies with the permitted uses of the existing site-specific zoning. And as mentioned by Mr. Warren, we are subject to site plan control, and we are going through that process with staff to look at the more technical details of the proposal. And in my opinion, this represents good land use planning. And if there are any questions, happy to answer. Thank you.
Thanks, Jones. Normally we would ask if there's other folks who have questions or comments, but given that you're at the microphone, I will take a moment to ask council if they have any questions of your presentation.
Absolutely.
Councilor Wright.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Just wondering, I'm assuming that the norm is for 2 loading spaces. I'm just wondering why only 1 if 2 are generally required.
Through the chair, it's a great question. So To determine the required number of loading spaces, it looks generally just at the gross floor area of a development. In this case, we have a lot of passive space associated with the hotel. So the majority of the hotel will be associated, it'll be comprised of guest spaces. And there's not a lot of actively used spaces. So there isn't necessarily a requirement for, multiple loading trucks to be on site at one time. They can coordinate deliveries of food or of other, service items on site. So there isn't a requirement for a second to ensure the functionality of the use.
Thank you both. Anyone else? Councillor Rowley?
Thank you. And you might suggest that I ask my question later. My question is for staff. May I ask that now or shall I wait?
Let's hang on to that one. Let's just
Okay,
ask
thank
the
you.
questions of the presenters. Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you very much. I hazard a guess that that's Brighton's first shadow study. I don't think we've seen that before, Brighton Council. So thank you for that. Didn't know such a thing existed.
Thank you.
Are there other persons present who have questions or comments with regard to 129 Elizabeth Street? Sir, in the back? No. Yeah, come on. What? You're standing, so come on. Come on up. Again, there's a little sheet there. If you could please make sure you complete the information there.
I'm Janet Sirianni. I'm unclear as to whether or not the question at this point, this is the first time I've ever attended a council meeting, so I'm a rookie. So I'm unclear whether my question at this point should just refer to what we've discussed so far relative to the communication about the proposal, or is this a time for specific questions related to the proposal? And given the answer to this question here, I'm thinking there may be another time for that.
I'll control members of council more than I'll control you. How's that sound?
Okay. So it's, okay.
It's a free-for-all. It's a statutory.
Sure.
It's not a free-for-all, folks.
Sure.
It's a statutory public meeting, so you can ask any question you want.
Couple of questions. I first want to make a comment about the communication on the proposal. I received no communication and I live directly opposite the plan on Elizabeth Street. I received no communication. Many of my neighbors did not. I will not say that no neighbor did because some did. So what went wrong there? I did receive previous proposals when it was dealing with the housing proposal, but this one was silent. The sign, until it was drawn to my attention, because Ron was kind enough to respond to my email, is below grade. If you're driving by on Elizabeth Street, you would not know that sign was there. It's below the grade of the road and it's behind vegetation. You would have to actually drive into the site, which you can't now because there's balustrades up, to actually read that sign. So it was only serendipity that I became aware of this plan, and I became aware of it through my connection to Brighton retirement residents, in that I'm associated with Applefest Lodge retirement residents. We have staff that work both places. So that's how I became aware of it and why I'm here today, because I do have some questions about the proposal. And first, I'm wondering why we would deal with the exemption of height before we address whether or not the proposal in and of itself is approved.
I'll hazard to answer this question, and if I get it wrong, Ron, you can chime in. How's that sound? The site itself is zoned appropriately for a hotel.
Right.
Period. The only thing we're being asked to consider tonight is a rezoning to permit the height. Did I get that right, Mr. Warren?
That is, sorry, to the best of my knowledge, that is correct.
Thank you.
So essentially, the hotel is approved, and the only thing left to discuss is whether it'll be 3 stories or 6 stories.
That's right.
Okay. Okay, so I guess my concern is, I think Brighton needs a hotel. Absolutely. We absolutely need a hotel. I like the impact it'll have on employment. I like the impact it'll have on commerce for the downtown section. We don't have very much in terms of hospitality housing in Brighton. But for the motel and some Airbnbs and some bed and breakfast. So we definitely need a hotel. I don't particularly want one at the end of my driveway. And I don't think anyone would. So that's the concern. And many of my neighbors that are here today feel exactly the same. I think that we may feel differently about it if it was going to be set back in the southwest corner. But to have it right literally at the end of our driveway, I've traveled extensively. I've never ever stayed in a hotel where you could literally throw a rock from that hotel to a house. So that's just my feeling on it. I think we need it. I think it's a great idea. I wonder if any other sites were considered, and I'm thinking primarily up by the highway, by McDonald's. There's 300 acres of farmland up there. Is there not a site up there that would be more appropriate, right with highway on-off access for a 6-story hotel?
I think you asked some important questions. So I will say that up by the McDonald's, that site was considered. I know the owner of the property to the immediate south of the McDonald's was looking at a possible hotel, but there's not enough water. They'd be on private sewer and private well. To the best of their knowledge, there was not enough water, and the multi-million dollars to run water up there would be prohibitive to build a hotel.
I understand.
So
Yeah.
in an ideal world, and one day probably there will be water and sewer up at the 401. That day is not today.
Not today.
And so the other answer to your question is the developer, the investor in this hotel owns the property that we're dealing with today. And so that's why that's the property they're considering to build their hotel on.
Right, right. So would there be any consideration in relocating the hotel to another part of the site?
I think the answer to that is no. I don't think that the developer is considering that option, and council has to consider what the developer is asking us to look at, which is to rezone this property for additional height of a hotel.
Okay. And so I noticed in what I read before the meeting that there were some studies on the impact of traffic and the impact of noise. Are those studies going to be made available to anybody? Was there a threshold of what level of noise increase was acceptable? What was the methodology of the studies? Will they be shared with the people that are going to be impacted most by this?
Mr. Warren, can you share if those studies are available to the public?
Those studies certainly can be made available to the public, although they were not submitted in support of this application. This is a rezoning application. They were submitted in support of the site plan application,
So
which is why they were attached to the notice.
Story hotel or a 6-story hotel.
What was your question?
So I'm referencing traffic impact and noise studies, for example. If they were studied just on the original proposal, at that point, there had not been rezoning. So it was just as likely you could have a 3-story hotel as you could have a 6-story hotel. So would that study not have to be redone if in fact the exemption for height is provided and we're now dealing with a 6-story hotel instead of a 3-story hotel?
I got this, Mr. Warren. Thank you. So the site plan application was submitted in conjunction with this rezoning. The site plan application is not a publicly facing consideration. So the site plan no longer comes to council for council's decision. It has been by provincial regulation designated to staff. So those studies were done with the consideration of a 6-story hotel. And again, I'll ask Mr. Warren if I'm offside there. Thank you. So we don't consider the noise or traffic studies for the zoning amendment. Staff consider the noise and traffic studies for the site plan recommendation, but they still are public documents owned by the municipality, and you can certainly still get access to those. And I think you just have to call the planning office for that, but we can probably make them available publicly as well. Mr. Director Walsh, thank you.
Okay, I don't think I have any more questions. Thanks.
Thank you for your time. Now in the back. And again, we'll just get you
Yeah.
to fill out the information there. Thank you.
Good evening. I live across the street as well from this, and
Could you state your name for the record, sir?
Jason Lukasevich.
Thank you, Jason.
And, I have a number of questions as well. I see the shadowing, the study that was done, although looking at these pictures, I did not see the neighboring land, like the actual plots of land where it would be. It just kind of shows the direction that it would be in, but not how it impacts each lot. That being said, I'm not that worried about it. I'm actually a little more worried about the light pollution. I do have questions regarding our water and sewer capability. Is it going to be upgraded again? What's it going to do to the water and sewer that's existing? Light pollution's a big thing. Like, it's gonna have a parking lot, it's gonna have lights on pretty much all night long, I would imagine. Whereas no frills, at least they turn theirs off at night. I've lived here for over 50 years, so I've seen a number of changes in that time. This has gone from a rather small town to pretty good size. The big question I've got is, living here this long, I know most of the attractions in the area. I'm just wondering what warrants an 85-room hotel. And secondly, what connection to the International Housing Assistance Program does this project have?
All right.
As far as traffic goes, I already can't get out of my driveway on a normal day. It's a bloody drag strip going through there anymore.
Hopefully we
They
still
come
come
out
down
of
this.
they come out of where the cameras are, and now it's out of town.
Yes, we need more cameras. I'm joking.
Yes, I mean, I used to play on that road when I was a child. We used to play road hockey in Highway 2, and people would slow down, they would stop, they would let you go. Now they'd sooner run over you. But I digress on that one.
Are those your questions?
But yes, I would, hoping we can get some answers as to what the water and sewer is
Sure.
going to do.
I've just asked Ms. Chard to pull up the shadow study so we can see those plots again, but I will address the water and sewer question. We have lots of water and sewer capacity.
Mhm.
We have an ammonia exceedance problem, which is why we've gone to RFP for a new sewage treatment plant. But in parcel with that construction, we will add additional capacity to the plant for future building, or we will have additional possible capacity to the plant for future consideration. So we will take care of all of our water and sewer issues here in short order.
Okay. Two other quick questions.
Yeah.
Will the road be extended? Will the road allowance be extended to include a turning lane or another intersection?
I have those questions as well, and I suspect that that's what Councillor Rowley was going to get to, or
Yeah.
something similar, traffic control.
I don't work in town, so I
Yeah,
right in here. So,
I get it. Mr. Warren, have we considered asking the developer to add turning lanes?
and where are they gonna go? Like, whose property gets
It'll,
smaller?
it would likely affect them, but go ahead.
Through the chair, I think I recall there being a turning lane that went in just before the lane that takes you into No Frills, if you will. And that was the access to the hotel site, and that's how it's shown on the draft site plan at this point. There is a full traffic management plan that's being reviewed by our engineers as well.
Okay.
And because that's all part of site plan control, I assume, council and the
Yes.
public won't get opportunity to make comment on that. Will there be an opportunity for staff to bring a report to council to provide us with information on what we are considering from a traffic control perspective?
I believe that's always an option. I will look to my boss to be sure, but yes, even though it's been delegated to staff sort of at the provincial level, there's still nothing that prevents council from being able to see something.
And council would not be interested in getting in the way of that staff delegation, but we would want to know what the intent is. That is a very busy stretch of our community, as I think everybody in this room is aware. And I think we all have concerns around traffic impacts for this area. Even the traffic impacts that the current no frills provides, I think are greater than we had anticipated in 2006-ish or whenever that 20 some years ago, almost 20 years
Yeah.
ago when that was considered. So I'm understanding the great concern, especially to the folks who have to turn out of their driveways on that piece of laneway. Absolutely, yeah. Light pollution, can anyone speak to light?
That would
pollution,
also
Mr.
be a
Ward?
site plan matter that we take very seriously as well. Things like garbage, parking, lighting, the elevations, at pedestrian access and things like that, as well as vehicular access to and from the site.
My yard is, and everybody's yard, pretty much
Mhm.
on that stretch is getting increasingly covered with Tim Hortons garbage from the people that go there on their lunch hours or during the day and walk and toss it in that nice deep ditch that's right there.
Mhm.
So when we cut the grass, it really looks bad.
It's unfortunately a very common story adjacent to Tim Hortons throughout the Southern Ontario.
Absolutely.
But I'm sure, knowing that there will be increased foot traffic in that area, we would want to extend our garbage and recycling facilities down there, so people have a better opportunity how they deal with their refuse, since they clearly can't put it in
Absolutely.
their pocket and wait to get to a garbage can.
Well, there is still quite a bit of wildlife in the area, raccoons and squirrels and
Right.
all sorts of stuff. Foxes. I was actually filmed one last night right on the highway across the street from the house that get into the garbage.
I'm gonna flip back to your first question on the shadows. You can see on the screen behind me, I'm looking over your head because I can see it behind you. Is it yellow? You see it as yellow, I see it as green. So the yellow portion is the hotel's shadow at
Yeah.
various times, and your homes are those white boxes on the other side of the gray Elizabeth Street. So you can see that at no point in the day does the shadow extend more than what looks like about a meter north of the current Elizabeth Street. So if the study is correct, which, the pros, we trust the pros, and it stands to reason. I mean, the sun.
Not sure those buildings are accurate, but that's okay.
Even so, even if your houses were, immediately adjacent to Elizabeth Street, you still wouldn't be affected by the shadow according to that study.
Fair enough.
And that's what we have to go on, right? We have to go
Yeah,
on this study.
absolutely.
You asked about attractions in the area and is there enough,
Well,
to do for an 85-room
it was
hotel?
leading into the IHAP.
The Hilton family, I'm sure, would not invest in an 85-room hotel if they didn't think they could occupy it at whatever the normal hotel capacity is. I think they look towards 75 or 80% on a ongoing basis. So they're in the business of making sure their hotel rooms are full, and we have to, we just have to look at the land use planning aspect
Mhm.
and not worry about their business model at the end of the day. And then your question about international housing, this is a commercial property, so it would not be something we would consider, is it taking up residential space or not? It's entirely commercial. So the whole of this piece of property, whether it's a hotel or a home hardware or whatever comes next, would never house people. So it would not be a consideration under that.
There are a number of hotels that have been actually used for that purpose.
Yes, that's true, for refugees and so on. And I'm sure if the time ever came that we needed that, we could look to Hilton for that purpose. But in the case of Brighton, it would be entirely for the transient population, tourist population.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and councillors. Hate to keep you waiting here. Got a long address. Okay. Thank you. Good evening. I'm Denise Rundle, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the Rundle family at 144 Elizabeth Street, immediately opposite the site, and in particular, our matriarch, Sonia Rundle, who happens to be with us here as well. I'm actually speaking on behalf of like a number of people, and in the interest of time, your time in particular, I am going to hope that you indulge me the time to actually get through the points that we wanted to say. The draft zoning bylaw amendment, which is before you, may seem inconsequential, but especially with only two standards being involved, the loading space and the height. But the increase in height is a significant one. I mean, it's not a minor adjustment, or they would have gone to committee of adjustment. But from 12 meters to 22 and a half or 6 stories, that's almost doubling the permitted height. The obvious impact for residents is visual. And we understand no one has a right to a view per se. But though the staff report says that there'll be no negative impact, we believe that permitting an extra bit of height by 3 stories will definitely have an effect on the degree of visual impact on the homes on the north side of Elizabeth Street. It was very difficult. I agree with another resident here. It was very difficult to get our thoughts together, just being given a height number. I mean, we had to, well, what's this going to look like? In order to assess impact on ourselves, we needed to search for the site plan, and we found the justification report on your website. We found the staff report on the website. So we did our due diligence and read them very carefully. We understand that a hotel on an arterial road obviously conforms to the provincial planning statement and the county and the municipal official plan land use policies. It meets the high-level planning notions of healthy communities, transportation, infrastructure, etc. And of course, we support the increased assessment and potential jobs, maybe housekeeping for residents. But the highway commercial zone has a height restriction for a reason. And it is about context, massing, and scale of development, which complement the existing overall character of commercial and residential uses, buildings, and structures across Brighton. It's this character, in fact, that attracts visitors and residents here. Where are the other 6-story buildings so close to the core? I'm not aware of any. But the lengthy justification report has 2 sentences. It was a long report. It was excellently done, but it only had 2 sentences to justify the height. And that's the only thing that we're asking for. The sentences were saying something like 6 stories offers a pedestrian scale, I guess any building would, transitioning in height from the surrounding buildings and future development. You're all familiar with the 1-story no-frills next door with the Tim Hortons, and the single-story homes or 2-story on the north side of Elizabeth Street, and the single-story house and buildings further along Elizabeth Street. But there's no application on the remainder of these lands. So we don't know how a 6-story height provides for any transition in this context. In this context, the proposed height will be abrupt. It will be severe. And it's completely out of character with what is there today. The official plan designates the whole 18 acres highway commercial. We understand that. Yet we all know in this room that the remaining portion of the lands are in fact being scouted for residential use. So unless council has predetermined what will be approved on the remainder of this site, it's premature to increase the height at this time, in our opinion, and say it provides for a good transition for future development. I don't know about that. I'm a little nervous about that because I don't know how 6 stories in fact fits in so close to the core. The current height restriction implements the official plan policy, which expects there, for many years now, a cluster of economic activity, which we need. We need a mix of retail and convenience uses and commercial uses, including a hotel. But that's what we've been expecting for years on this property. The location is key. I again agree with what I just heard earlier. 6 stories may well be more appropriate at the 401 entrance for the traveling public. That's what highway commercial uses are meant for. But in this location, the traveling public are most likely going to be the residents from Brighton as they go to and from Trenton. It serves as a gateway to the core area. And it's within walking distance. And for that matter, my father-in-law used to walk into the main street all the time. So the height, scale, setbacks, and massing, usually site plan issues, I fully understand that, are extremely important in this case. We note that the Brighton official plan expects to achieve high standards of urban design. Brighton deserves that. We recognize these lands as a gateway. The official plan speaks specifically to that notion. Not all highway commercial sites have that feature, recognizing them as a gateway. The justification report says that the hotel has been thoughtfully designed, recognizing that it's in a prominent location. But the True Hilton brand has hotels existing or proposed in medium-sized cities all across the 401 from Mississauga to Oshawa and now Brighton to an existing 4-story in Napanee, Gananoque, and the existing one in Bracebridge is only 5 stories. So I'm seeing there's opportunity for flexibility here. But what we did notice in terms of thoughtful design is that they're all pretty much the same design, if you look at them. So that's just worthy of noting. I know it's a site plan issue. Further, the justification report states that the building has frontage on Elizabeth Street, as any building would. It needs frontage, but it says to activate the streetscape. That is a prominent urban design goal. But again, reading the report and trying to use my glass because my vision's not getting great, looking at that site plan to understand exactly what the site is going to look like, we notice that the building is oriented towards Elizabeth Street. And the main entrance is actually at the rear of the building. The 4 trees, grass, and a pathway with a summertime outside patio for the free breakfast that they get, in our opinion, does nothing really to activate the streetscape. We certainly haven't observed a lot of people walking along the sidewalk to go get their groceries. But the neighbors and community will be viewing 6 stories of the backside of this building, a tall street wall 20 feet off the road allowance for a good length along Elizabeth Street. And we do not agree with staff itself that the street, being Elizabeth Street, the highway there, will provide the buffer and mitigate intrusive overlook and privacy issues, not with the extra height. The excessive height, together with the site plan issues, collectively contribute to some degree of impact. There will be impact, not only on us neighbors who have to look at the back end of a building, but also by the residents who have to drive by it. My issue, personally, because I'm speaking on a number of other people in order to save you some time here, is that opportunity exists today for a 4-story hotel with 85 units in it without the need to amend the overall highway commercial height restriction. They could get their site plan approval without any public input, because you're allowed to notify the public, but I guess the municipality doesn't, and that's fair enough, they're allowed to. They can lift the holding provision without any public input. The zoning bylaw allows for a 4-story hotel. The consent to sever has not even been applied for to date, I believe. And that's why the draft zoning amendment before you tonight probably doesn't indicate the dimensions and depth of exactly the portion of lands that this bylaw will apply to. We certainly do not want to see 22.5-meter height set the standard for the development of the remaining 18 acres. The bylaw is not hindering development of a hotel here. We all know that. It simply doesn't allow the applicant's standard design for 6 stories. I have no doubt at all, that if council approves an increase to 22.5 meters or 6 stories, it will set the precedent for future requests and buildings on the remaining portions of the lands and other highway commercial lands within the urban boundary across Brighton. Maybe even the Sobeys site on Highway 2. What makes that so different? But it is. It's about fit and it's about character, and it only takes one to start the trend. The community has to trust our staff to uphold the official plan expectations of high standards of urban design, because they're the delegated site plan approval authority now. Tonight, in fact, is the only opportunity that they get to hear from any residents in that regard. The only input you as council can have relates to the height. So we're asking each of you individually, does a 6-story building 20 feet off the street line with its back toward the residents across the street meet your vision, meet your official plan's vision, or even contribute toward the welcoming concept of being a gateway to the town? And not just a gateway to the unknown future development. In conclusion, and I am concluding, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Brighton is under considerable pressure from the province and city developers to allow increased densities and new residential development on large tracts of agricultural lands on the perimeter. And that is already changing the character of Brighton. Now, you're being asked to increase height in a commercial area, a predominant commercial area, one that's a gateway to your town. But this is not being driven by the province in this case. It's in your hands. Council has tremendous responsibility. It's not easy doing your jobs. It is not easy. You need to balance the public and the private interests. We get that. But you also have the responsibility that as Brighton continues to grow, you need to balance it in order to maintain and protect its character and charm, if you will, in accordance with your own official plan, and in this case, the existing highway commercial zone, which implements your official plan. You have the power and you have the authority, and we urge you to use it to uphold your zoning bylaw, and if not, then request a reduction in that requested height. Removing 1 or 2 stories won't make or break this project. Hilton certainly has the resources to appeal it to the Ontario Municipal Board, and should you even change your mind then, it's not going to cost this municipality anything. But either option, at least, would send a message to the developer and to others that are coming in the future, and they will come. It's very, very difficult dealing with applications like this. I mean, we certainly understand it. But those who are watching tonight on YouTube, because I know I've heard of a number of people that are watching tonight, some people are saying it's a done deal. I trust this council and I trust the staff. And all we ask is that you listen to the public input that you've actually received tonight. But we need to send the message to all the developers. Yes, we want highway commercial development. We want it. We want the investment in our town. But in the public interest of respecting the neighbors who have to look at this particular development, in the interest of those, and in the interest of maintaining the vision of our own official plan, and the look and feel and character of Brighton, in this particular location, height matters. Thank you very much for indulging me, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mrs. Rundle. Appreciate your comments. Is there anyone else present who has a question or comment with regard to the proposal?
The pen went away.
The pen went away. Mrs. Rundle, did you take the pen?
Great place to meet.
Just like Sobeys.
Okay, good evening.
Hi.
I'm a rookie too. I've never done this. I've never been here.
Welcome to Brighton Council. We tend to be gentle. If you could state your name for the record, though.
Chris McLean.
Thanks, Chris.
There's many faces in here who I know personally and even on a friend base. And yeah, this is a difficult one. I understand that it's approved. I believe I emailed you personally, Brian, in regards to a concern, and I know it's already been addressed. And I really do hope that these individuals, your staff, look at the traffic. Because I'm telling you, I am tired of picking up our community members on my grass from car accident after car accident after car accident coming out of no frills. Ever since that left lane went in, I can't tell you how many police calls I've made because someone got T-boned and why someone's in the street crawling to get to the sidewalk, and I got to run out of my house and pick them up and pick up car parts. That is my concern. We're adding more traffic. We're adding possibly more lanes. Where's the street light going to go? Because there has to be a street light. There has to be. And I'm saying that because there's no sidewalk on that side. So these people that are going to come and visit us, these tourists, they have to now jaywalk or go all the way over to the other side of no frills to cross the road legally. So where's the next street light gonna go? That's my question there. And whose property is that going to fall on? Because that's another concern. I like the issue. The Miss Rundle here made a very valid point, and I wasn't aware of it until just now. And I agree with her. I mean, I'm at 150. I'm not afraid to tell anyone who I am and where I live. I am the skate sharpening guy in town. This place is going directly across my house. And now I got to look out my window and look at a receiving door. That upset me today. Can you guys look at this again? If it's already approved and it's going to happen, if it's this big, or this big, can we look at it to make it look pretty? I agree with Ms. Rundle here. Because the last thing we need to look at, and I say we as a community, is the back end of some apartment building. Because that's really what a hotel is. It's an apartment building. And what guarantees do we have that it is going to be, you said 80%, or if that's what the study is? Because the Brighton Motel is now a rental property and you rent it by either the day, the week, the month. Copperfields in Trenton is the same thing. Like these are hotels, motels that are no longer existent. So where's the guarantee that that's going to happen in say 20 years from now? That it's not just going to be, hey, rent this because we don't have affordable housing anymore. What guarantees do we have with that? Those are my questions. Those are my concerns, and I hope they're fair.
I think they sounded fair to me. So with regard to the look of the building, that is entirely site plan control, and that has been delegated to staff through provincial regulation. So we have asked staff to bring back a report with regard to site plans so that it becomes a publicly facing document. It is available to the public anyway, but you'd have to go ask. We're going to try to get it. We're going to ask for it to become a council document so that it becomes a publicly facing.
And you guys said that already,
Yeah.
but I'm just voicing another opinion on this.
And I appreciate that. And just for your information, I did receive your correspondence, Mr.
Right.
McLean. I did forward it to staff tonight, knowing that this was the subject matter, so that they would receive that information, be able to include it as part of the statutory public meeting. You making a comment tonight helps with that as well, so we appreciate that.
I'm for and against this. I please know that. I just think there might be a better way. That's all. And I think that's fair.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate that. Does anyone else have any comment or question with regard to the zoning bylaw amendment? Members of council, your turn.
I'm Heidi Wienica. I'm at 148 Elizabeth Street. I'm beside Chris McLean. And I moved here 3 years ago from Toronto because this place really is special. And Port Hope and Coburg are already bursting, and Toronto market goes to Peck, and they come through this area, and everybody totes the apple route and so on. And really, I mean, at the end of the day, we also all look at our financial properties as our investments and for our children. The high school is right down the road. And we want to leave a legacy for our children, and our property value is important. So the Toronto market, people that you're trying to attract that are going to Peck, that might stay here or on the cusp of Peck, they are not going to stay in this hotel. It's ugly. And as Chris said, and other people here from the street, we're the ones that are going to have to look at the back end of this thing. And any of you that live in other parts of Brighton that would like to look at the back end of anything, I'm sure it wouldn't be appreciated. And this holding company that is developing, they have very bad reputation on the internet about clearing garbage, the aesthetics of the buildings, how they operate and so on. And that's going to be all facing Elizabeth Street, which we're not attracting tourists with this thing. Maybe there's something better that could be done that will increase our property values at the same time. This is not it. And Toronto is not going to come and stay. And we're not going to increase our property values this way. And those people are going to go straight through to Peck and spend their money there. What do we have to tote now? We put a second drug property in Brighton. Are the restaurants not involved in this either? Kind of voicing, Brian, what may go in? Because these people then that stay would eat and spend money in our town.
I haven't heard from any of the restaurateurs in town.
It's a real shame because it would be working on this together. It just seems that this thing is going plop with no consideration. Our street doesn't own the town, but we certainly pick up everything that comes through town. We put up with the traffic, with the garbage, with the accidents. We also are ambassadors for all the students that walk past our properties, making sure that they're safe. And this hotel is not going to improve that pathway for our children either. So no matter if we live across from it, our property values will plummet. But this is not going to bring in the market that you want to have the rest of your properties in Brighton also increase, because it won't. Not a 6-story hotel. Hilton has various degrees of hotels. We've seen it all over the GTA. There's a better plan probably that we could all look at that would be aesthetic to the town as people come in and out on their way to spend money in the other towns around us. But this is not going to bring the type of money that we want to do things for Brighton. And it's certainly, I'm from the hotel business. I've worked with many hotel chains around the world. And they're not going to get 85% or 80% or whatever it is. No way. And it's going to sit empty, and then it's going to maybe gather dust, not fill the rooms, and then you exactly as I do what's going to happen to that. And then it won't matter that the back of that hotel is facing all those properties and people coming in town, because it won't be a hotel anymore. So I think there's more of a consideration here than even the stories, but it's obviously a done deal. But is there nothing we can do aesthetically to at least make this town a gateway to Peck, that people leave some money here and support the restaurants and support some stores and, you know, other people that are trying to make a living here? And protect our children. This doesn't protect our children. That high school, they walk past every day multiple times. It's doing nothing for the kids and for the future of Brighton. So I'm going to sign my name. I appreciate development. I've lived through many developments in Toronto, the subway going in at the top of my street and all that. But I have to say, everything is pretty aesthetically looked at in Toronto from top to bottom. Somebody missed the mark here. That is an ugly structure, and we all know it. And we're pretending it's not. And to go all of a sudden double to what's allowed in Brighton, it's an eyesore. I don't know why we're pretending that it's not. It's way over the limit of what's been allowed in the past, and nobody's willing to look at the future. I'm sure you want your kids to come back and visit you, and you want your grandkids here, and maybe nice things happening in town that the town develops properly. And this is not a proper development. This is somebody trying to push through an 85-room hotel way over the height. It's not going to bring what you want into town. It's not going to bring the market you want into town to spend money. So I'm going to sign here, and I invite any of my other neighbors and beautiful townspeople to really consider.
Thank you, Ms. Weineck. Appreciate your comments. Is there anyone else who wishes to make a comment before I turn the floor over to members of council for their questions?
Yes, I would.
Come on up.
It's gonna be quick, don't worry.
Even if it was long, I wouldn't worry.
It's the signing that's long.
Can I tag along with my better?
Thank you, everybody.
Yes, if you're the Mr. Rundle of the Mrs. Rundle who already spoke, you can just add your name to.
Okay. C. Rundle as above?
Yeah.
It's quick. It's just a comment. The shadow study is one thing, but realistically, the azimuth of the sun has a different trajectory in the thank you. In the wintertime. When my dad built the house 38 years ago, a lot of it was passively solar heated. Part of its design was, and hence quite the window frontage along it, but it's great that the shadow study is showing shadow based on when the sun position's actually higher in the sky. Shadows are going to be longer and more direct in the wintertime than they are being depicted there. Just a little detail. I tend to be a bit of a detail kind of guy, but that's my comment on that. So I think that should have been part of it as well, too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rundle.
Mayor.
Appreciate
Thank
your
you.
time. And I see that there's someone on Zoom who would like to speak. Steve?
Hello. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me okay?
I think you're speaking because there's a green frame around your panel, but we can't hear you. So if you could try to figure out your sound and turn on your camera too, please. And Ms. Chard, could you please remove the presentation from the, thank you.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Hello? No?
No, he's not muted.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, Steve, we can't hear you.
All right. I'm just going to keep trying to talk. I'm going to.
No, I don't think there's anything we can do at this end. Yeah, we can't hear you, Steve. Sorry. If you could provide us your comments in writing. You already did. If you can provide us your comments in writing, you may forward those to the planning office or to me, and I'll get them to the planning office or to the clerk. He's gonna try again. Well, we'll just, Councilor McCausland, you had a question. Why don't we go this route, and then we'll pop back to Steve when he comes back.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Just kind of one, and there's a lot of questions about it, but is the height of the proposed building compatible with the road classification and surrounding infrastructure?
Mr. Warren.
So can you repeat the question? I was just looking to see if that email had come in from Steve. Pardon me.
Yeah, no worries. Is the height of the proposed building compatible with the road classification and surrounding infrastructure?
Through the chair, yes, I think staff is fully in support of the height, given the classification being an arterial roadway of Elizabeth Street through this area. with it being a gateway area and an area where we need efficient use of services and transit supportive development, which is generally found at higher densities.
Thank you both. I did see Steve pop back in and then leave again, so we'll just keep our eye open. And if I don't see him, will you please alert me that he's up there? Okay. Any other questions or comments from members of council? Councilor Wright.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. A couple questions. Is the hotel proceeding contingent on it getting 6 floors, or would it proceed with 4 floors if we decide to not do that this evening?
Mr. Warren?
Through the chair, I am not aware one way or the other.
Okay.
That hasn't been addressed by the proponent.
Okay. I know that, like, so far we have not been party to the site planning, but are some of the concerns, would they be able to be addressed by landscaping to a certain degree, mitigating light pollution, all of that kind of stuff? Because could those things still be taken care of at this stage of the game?
Mr. Warren.
Through the chair, yeah, these are very definitely site plan concerns that are at the front of the burner for us. Part of the landscaping, and we've actually hired a Weston consultant who's doing a peer review of the urban design. And we're looking to have a very, as high-end an urban facade as we can facing Elizabeth Street. And I will also note that the earlier on stages, when we first received the site plan application, staff were not in support of the alignment or the overall placement of the hotel as it's proposed. It's still not been fully determined.
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Steve?
Oh. Did that work?
Yeah, your audio is still not coming through, and we can't see you either. Okay, Councilor Rowley, I'm going to go to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, so my 1 or 2 questions and maybe follow up are also for staff. Yeah, I don't care about, just looking at the site. That's the only piece of highway commercial property that we have left in Brighton, correct? The envelope where this hotel is in is not the complete piece of highway commercial property. Does it go a little bit farther east, west?
Mr. Warren?
Through the chair, yes, it's a much larger site than that. This is the northeast corner of the site.
Right.
It
So
is
it's just,
significantly more to the
it's just a
west.
small portion.
Yes.
Yeah, some of my concern is that we're not giving it all up. When you speak about placement of the hotel and the fact that the biggest wall is going to be facing Highway 2, can they flip it? Can they make it more of a north-south better than an east-west? Is there, it doesn't really change the footprint in the whole envelope, right? It's just, we still have parking, maybe the access could be in that way. Those residents who are impacted are maybe not going to look at a whole 50 or 60-foot wall, maybe just a 20 or 30-foot wall. Is there any consideration from the developer for that?
Mr. Warren?
Through the chair, I can confirm that there's certainly consideration from staff because this has been a request we've made of the proponent.
I'll just wait to hear from you then.
Thank you, Councilor Butwell.
Thank you through the chair. To Mr. Warren, has there been any consideration that as proposed height increases, that the municipality require an increased setback from the road?
Through the chair, that has not been a consideration. Generally, we want the building at the street for good urban design, to be honest with you. If it were further back, there could be other design options, but very often when site plans come in and they have parking in the front and the building at the back, the first comment is, please reverse this.
First comment from whom?
Staff. Me specifically.
You specifically. And is that because the idea is that that staff or folks in your position in cases like this are looking for a corridor effect?
It does tend to improve the urban design, especially when it's an arterial roadway like that. So what we'd like to have is a high-end landscape and an urban design of the street.
Mhm.
Hopefully participating with and enhancing the street life there. We don't want to have it necessarily with parking in the front. Have the parking behind or even below grade.
So the back of the building faces, and if I may continue, the back of the building faces Elizabeth Street. The parking areas face southwards. The main entryway, the presentation of the hotel, that all faces southwards as well.
It does face from the south through the chair.
It does face from the south. So all of the aesthetic appeal of that building is facing away from the people who are most impacted by negative aesthetic appeal.
I would say that the urban design side of
Chance.
the elevations
Mr.
are
Warren.
actually available on the presentation. They're fairly similar on the north side and the south, but it is definitely on the south side that there's the entranceway, the usual half circle curve that you get in front of a hotel when people drop people off and things like that. That is facing the south.
So I myself, I've stayed in a kind of, I guess, a smaller type of hotel, not the main brand, but one of the junior brands, in Ottawa, and it's right across a 2-lane street. And it's essentially it backs onto the 417, which is a highway, and it's the buffer between the residential and the highway. So I guess it kind of makes sense, but those folks who were moving there understood what they were getting. I don't understand because I do understand your answer, but I was under the impression that good design was to keep the streets open as streetscapes, and that as you went up, you moved further back. You end up with main floor. Your main floor is kind of at street level at the allowance, and then you stagger backwards to allow for height without impacting the street. Has that changed in the last 5 years?
I can't really speak to whether or not it's changed, but I support that style of urban design, to be sure. And it's something we've been looking for. I know when I've seen some drawings on the balance of the site. That's the type of thing that I would like to see as well. Mixed use, higher density, but staggered back as the height increases.
Because I think that by relocating, because it is one parcel that we're talking about, one parcel of land.
The phone is at the microphone or
Moving
something like that, and I could speak.
development like that at 6 stories back from the road further makes much more sense. I myself don't know if I could support 6 stories being right on Elizabeth Street.
You yourself don't get to make a decision on that.
No, I know.
Site plan control is not a council decision.
No, I understand that, but we're being asked to change the bylaw to allow for increased heights.
That's right.
Right, so.
Not where the building goes
No.
or what the streetscape
No.
looks like.
No, understand completely. So the only thing that we can at this circle decide on is how high we're going to let it be where it is now. What's being put forward towards.
Allow the bylaw or don't allow the bylaw. That's
Exactly.
what we'll be asked to
Yeah.
consider this evening.
Yeah, no, I understand it. Okay, thank you very much.
So I'm going to go to Steve, who has changed his name to read, "Can someone take a phone call?" And no, Steve, someone can't take a phone call, but if you could email me your comments, mayor@brighton.ca, I will read them out loud. We would allow that, ma'am. Yes. But either you or Stephen will have to be named in the list here. Oh, you've got his information? So we already have Steve's information. Thanks, Ron.
I can't hear anything. I have to re-log in. I'm still on the phone, but I need to re-log in.
We can hear you through the phone, Steve.
Yeah, he's got a document or something. He's bringing out. Do you want me to put his name down or my name?
Already got his name.
Oh.
Yeah, we've already got that info. Ma'am, we can hear him. If you can tell him we can hear him.
Stephen, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Rejoin the meeting.
Oh,
Go ahead. Oh,
Well, the mayor said about sending an email to,
Hello, I believe that this entire proposed business venture to be a scam. It's not reasonable for anyone to have a reasonable expectation for a hotel of this size to be profitable in Brighton unless it was a scam. First, this project is being built by a group connected to the one that built a similar large building for the elderly care at the west end of Brighton on Highway 2. That project was a scam. Contractors and individuals who worked on that building that cost tens of millions of dollars were not paid. It's clear in hindsight, there was no intention to pay. It was not a project that suddenly went bad through construction. It was always a scam from the start.
Steve, I to disparage a group in the community, regardless of your opinion of them. If you'd like to speak to the bylaw amendment question, you may.
did you?
I did not.
Okay, they can't allow that,
Okay.
Stephen.
All
You
right.
have the bylaw
All
department.
right. Well, it comes into why this is a scam. This proposed bylaw, it's more expensive to build extra stories compared to building a larger footprint with the same total square footage. This is 6 stories tall. It's only necessary to build that high due to space constraints, and there's no other option because of the increased cost. It's simply cheaper to build like 3 stories twice. This property is 7.4 hectares. There are no space constraints. It's all up in that one corner. There's no logical reason to build the most expensive design. There's also no logical reason to pick a location adjoining the railroad tracks for a hotel due to the noise of the trains going by. Everybody in Brighton knows the train noise. But that's not surprising. Something else is going on here. For comparison, 6 stories is the height of the courthouse in Belleville, which is a relatively thin and tall building. But this hotel is going to be massive with 85 rooms. There's no reasonable belief that any legitimate business plan can come to that would think with the tiny town of Brighton, it can support that much occupancy. A hotel with 20 rooms, maybe. 60? No, that wouldn't be profitable. But 85 rooms is crazy talk. You can't have 85% occupancy for that many rooms. For comparison, Vito's Inn was built 30 years ago. Brighton could not support it as a hotel. There was simply not enough business. It had to change to monthly rentals. Copperfields, same thing. Brighton has grown, but not grown to the point of supporting an 85-room hotel. No reasonable person investing millions in this project would choose that specific land and choose to build a 6-story hotel on it, and that's it. So something else is going on. Any promises of future benefits can't be taken at face value. Like the idea of getting jobs from this project is likewise fanciful thinking. The number of people working at a hotel, even a large one, is negligible. Like we're talking, even for 85-room hotel, you're talking less than 10 people. One way or another, the people of Brighton end up paying for this in ways they do not expect. Before, it was mentioned that the council trusts, they know what these individuals are doing. Don't trust. Use some common sense and not wishful thinking. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, back to council. Councilor Wright, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I can hear you. For some reason, it's muted.
To you, Mr.
on the
Mayor.
stream now.
My question is
Like,
regarding,
it was working.
we've already dealt with a development in the area that we said no to. And we saw how that went in terms of going to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Is there any difference with dealing with the commercial property in that regard?
Mr. Warren?
Through the chair, I believe that every tribunal decision is based on its own merits individually.
But this could go to a tribunal, like the Ontario Land Tribunal. If we said no, the developer would be in his rights to take it to the Ontario Land Tribunal.
It would be potentially, yes.
Right. And so if that happens and the development is ruled in their favor, then we lose all control over it, just like we would for a residential.
Through the chair, I'm not really sure what you mean by no control, and we would still have site plan.
Yeah.
Site plan, but
We would just lose control over the bylaw amendment. That's the only thing the only thing we're making a decision on. So the only thing that's appealable after this evening.
is the bylaw. So, but they could take it then to the Ontario Land Tribunal and still get their 6 floors, that's what I'm saying.
If that's how the land
Yeah.
tribunal ruled, yes.
Right, okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from members of council? Councillor Wheeldon.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to make sure that I'm remembering correctly, how many floors is the apartment building on the west side of town on County Road 2? Is that 5? 4? I thought one was 4 and one was 5.
Stumping everybody.
Certainly more than 12 meters, though.
Yeah, it's above 12. All 3 of the buildings in that area are above the 12-meter height. Director Walsh.
Yeah, I just trying to confirm which buildings you were referring to. You mean on the corner of Main and Rundle?
Yes.
Yeah, so I can't, 4 stories, there's 2 buildings there, one right on the corner, then one south of the one on the corner. And the one is 4 stories, and I can't remember the height of the second one.
It's 3.
It's 3. Yeah, thank you, Ron.
And we just approved the Omni build, right? The bylaw for that. How many stories is that?
And it's 4 stories.
It's 4 stories as well.
Yeah.
Okay. You have your answer. Any other questions or comments from members of council? Mr. Warren, do you have any final comments?
None at this time. Thank you.
I'll give you one more chance before I close it out. Yeah, come on into the microphone so that our friends on YouTube can hear you.
Many people move to Brighton from an urban area. I've heard the use of the term urban quite a bit in this meeting. I was born in Toronto, but I've lived my whole life here. Why do we seem to be willing to turn, if you move from an urban area to Brighton, that's to get away from the urban. Why are we trying to make Brighton urban? That's just a question I have. You know, it's something I wanted to say to basically everyone involved here. We're not the city. Why are we trying to be?
Appreciate the comment. I'm going to take it as rhetorical. You're probably not really looking for an answer. Understood. Yeah, I appreciate that it was percolating up and folks. All right, come on up. You next, Chris. Council, no, I was going to get Janice to come up first. Yep. Sorry, Chris. And it's like a love in here. Councillor Rowley wanted to respond to the urban question. Apparently it wasn't rhetorical to her. Councillor Rowley.
That's exactly true. So I was born and raised on Prince Edward Street when we had wooden sidewalks and ditches. If you want to urbanize, it's about moving towards the future, right? I embrace what we're doing here. Like I said, I've never lived outside of Brighton, born and raised on Prince Edward Street, on a farm. Now there's apartment buildings where my home was taken down, but you know what? All for the benefit of whoever else lives here and those who are coming in the future.
I'm just writing down that there were wooden sidewalks when Councillor Rowley.
So there was.
Well, yeah, but I got to use that against you at some point.
Thanks for
I'm sorry,
adopting me.
please.
My last comment or question is really related to the fact that I am a neophyte to this process. But I noticed in reviewing the agenda 10.4, when it referenced the specific activity related to the exemption. It showed first, second, and third reading this evening. Now, I noticed that that was also the case with some other agenda items, so I'm guessing that that is something that occurs frequently. But to a neophyte looking at that, it looks like a big old rubber stamp. And so my question is, if everyone votes today, if a vote is taken, in fact, that this exemption is going to be provided for this proposal, is that the end of it? Is there any more opportunities for public discussion and for comments? Or do all these folks that are going to be looking at that monstrosity from here on just get sent away with a pat on the head?
So we won't pat you on the head, but let me go to your first, second, and third reading question. It's a parliamentary procedure that you would read it a first time and then send it to committee in the parliamentary process. We don't have that committee system at the local level.
Right.
So under the procedures, we read it a first, second, and third time and pass it. That's how municipal councils tend to do it. I think there are some larger cities that would send it to committee, so they would have a more robust system, like Toronto would have a more robust committee system where they would consider all these things after first reading. But that's not how we manage those procedures here in Brighton. So all of our bylaws, I don't think I've ever seen a bylaw not read a first, second, and third time and passed on the same day.
Okay.
Just FYI.
It
Yeah,
makes perfect sense.
and not a rubber stamp. It's just the way we read the
Just the
bylaw.
way you do
Yeah.
it, just the way you do it. So
So-
as far as any further recourse.
So back to your other question, there used to be an appeal process for citizens. That appeal process has been taken away by the province so that only the proponent, the municipality, and other agencies, I'm looking at the director to make sure I've got that right, yeah, can appeal. So the Conservation Authority, as an example, would have right to appeal. No. So that's wrong because they've taken those rights from the Conservation Authority under different acts. The County of Northumberland would have right to appeal because it's on a portion of their roadway. Yeah. The railroads would have right to appeal because it abuts railroad lands. And the municipality, if it went the wrong way, whatever we thought the wrong way, it would have right to appeal. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. McLean.
I know this is, your answer is going to be, it's going to be a part of the planning of like how the streets are all going to go. But my question is, I looked at your plans. It looks like you guys are going to, this plan is going to tap into my fire hydrant. So is my property going to be destroyed? Is the road going to be tore up to put this whole piping system to the fire hydrant?
I don't know. I haven't seen those engineering drawings. Those won't come to council. Mr. Warren, do you have a comment on that?
Unfortunately, I am not aware of the engineering drawings either. They are part of the package that we have, and they're with the staff who know how to read them. And I'm unfortunately not one of them.
So how do I get this answer?
Would that be included in the site plan control report that you're going to bring back to council, Director?
Yes, we can offer that through the information report from staff, and presumably there'll be other issues that we have to address as well. Like there is a proposed multi-use pathway proposed, so there would be some construction.
So I'm going to be expecting some damage on my property?
Nothing, no damage that wouldn't be restored.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you both. Is there anyone else? Last chance, members of council, last chance. Mr. Warren, any final comments? I know you said no, but then there were other comments. So now any final comments in theory?
None at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have a motion that has been signed. Does council wish me to read that motion? It is moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson. The council receives the staff report dated June 16th, 2025 regarding the subject zoning bylaw amendment applications at 03/2025 pertaining to 129 Elizabeth Street. The council enacts a bylaw to amend the current special highway commercial zone in the Municipality of Brighton zoning bylaw 140/2002 as amended in order to allow one hotel use with a maximum height of 22.5 meters from established finished grade on the subject lands as identified in this report, And further, that council passes the following motion. The H holding designation on the subject lands shall be removed upon execution of a site plan agreement with the municipality for the proposed hotel to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning and Development. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Warren, once again, as you said, the site plan is not 100% complete and maybe not 100% as you would expect it to be. As I said, maybe turning the building or those kind of things. This does not affect that. Those concerns will still come at a later time. This is all we are voting on tonight is whether or not to approve the height restriction or the height exemption.
Through the chair, that's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wheeldon.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. If we are looking at the height of the hotel, if we were to make the case that we rejected the height of the hotel on the basis of the aesthetic of the design of the hotel, I would guess that a tribunal would say, well, are you objecting to the height or the design? It seems to me that these are separate issues, the design being entirely not in our decision tonight. And so the question of, is this an eyesore, has nothing to do really necessarily with how big it is. It might be the most beautiful hotel in the world at 6 stories. We just get to decide on the height. Is that, am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, through the chair. Yes, through the chair. We're only here for height.
Follow up further with regard to height. The question was asked earlier about why do we want to build up? We've heard a lot tonight about the nature of Brighton, its natural beauty, its historic farming character. I hear a lot from people who don't want to see density of development. And the thing that I always end up saying is, we don't get to control how many people live in Brighton or how many businesses are in Brighton. What we do control is how much space that takes up. We either build up or we build out. If we build at lower density, we end up with fewer of those fields and forests left. And so building higher is not only somewhat inevitable, but it's also good design. It allows us to maintain the natural environment as much as possible.
People are idiots.
That said, I'm not insensitive to how much of a change this would be. This would be a huge change. And I'm sorry, change is never easy for any of us. So however council ends up voting tonight, I hope everyone understands that nobody is thinking about this purely in terms of a callous. People often talk about planning decisions and how councils have pushed them through for money or something like that. Reality is we don't see anything out of this. Somebody wants to develop their own property according to the law, and they've asked for one change of height. And as I said, building up rather than out is ultimately a benefit to us all. But it does impact some people more than others. So I'm not insensitive to that, and I'm sorry for the change that's being. It's going to be a change for you no matter what. That entire area is going to be developed in different ways. The view will change dramatically, whether there's a hotel there or not. But I just wanted to tell you that I hear you, and that's why we have the urban desire there, is so that we can preserve what else we can.
Thank you, Councillor Wheeldon. Any other comments or questions from members of council? No, I'm sorry. Ma'am, we've ended the statutory public. We're discussing a motion, ma'am. Any further comment or question from members of council? Councillor McCausland.
Just one maybe positive take on this is there is a swimming pool. Maybe we could possibly look at something to do with the community and involving them into the swimming pool in the hotel.
Working on it. Anything further from members of council? Councillor Rowley.
Like a recorded vote, please.
Anything further from members of council? Madam Clerk, a recorded vote has been requested by Councillor Rowley.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Emily Rowley,
Yes.
Councillor Jeff Wielden,
Yes.
Councillor Bobby Wright,
No.
Deputy Mayor Ron Anderson,
Yes.
Councillor Ann Butwell,
No.
Councillor Hannah McCausey,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander,
Yes.
and that has been carried.
Thank you, everyone. The next item in our statutory public meeting is 2025-96, Declaration and Sale of Surplus Lands, file number RC 01-2025, to close and convey a municipal road allowance, part of Lot 2, Concession 7, and part of Lot 36, Concession 5, now Part 5 on RP 38R1152, and we'll give the gallery a moment to disperse before we carry on. Let's take a 5-minute recess so that people can do what they need to do.
Yes. Was it one person that said no? Yeah.
Did you say yes?
The Fabian. I know.
Right, well, it seems all.
Yeah, exactly.
But please.
So it is 8:10. I'll call the meeting back to order. I've read the file number, but the purpose of tonight's, this portion of the statutory public meeting is to address requirements under the Planning Act for hosting a public meeting. Before council makes a decision to obtain public input towards making any decision on the proposed road closure and sale application. And so, Mr. Warren, by what method and on what date was notice of the applications given?
In addition to the sign posted on the lands, public notice was provided to all landowners within 120 meters of the subject site on May the 26th, earlier this year.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. And would you please explain the purpose and reason for the subject application before council this evening?
Yes, the application for the closure and sale of the road allowance was submitted by Troy O'Neill for the purchase of a 73-meter portion of Bryce Drive. It's currently a closed road allowance running north from the terminus of Wood Street in the hamlet of Orland. And it's anticipated that the portion of the road allowance will serve as frontage and access for a new residential lot for Mr. O'Neill. If there's one more point I would make, it's that the sale of a road allowance is generally first offered to the abutting landowners on either side, 10 meters each. And in this particular instance, the proponent is seeking to purchase the entire 20-meter width. Staff have confirmed through discussions with the abutting landowner at 14 Wood Street on the west side of the road allowance. Mr. O'Neill lives on the east side of the road allowance, that they are aware of the proposed purchase of the municipal road allowance, have no objections, provided they are granted an easement to access an existing garage. Additionally, Hydro One has indicated that they would like to conduct a site visit to the subject lands, certainly not completed at the time of submitting the report. I don't think it's happened since then. And their only concern would be if they find in that site visit, they may require an easement for access, and that would be provided as well on the final survey plan.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. Are there persons present who have questions or comments regarding the subject application this evening? Members of council, questions or comments? Councilor Rowley?
Thank you, Mayor. So barring no concerns with Hydro One, staff in the neighborhood is fine with this. Is that what you're saying, Mr. Warren?
Yes, that would be fine at this point. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any final comments, Mr. Warren?
None at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Everyone okay if I read the motion? It's moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Councillor McCausland, that council receives the staff report dated June 16th, 2025 regarding application file number RC01 2025 for the declaration of surplus and sale of lands to close and convey the municipal road allowance. And further, that council declare the road allowance on Bryce Drive, described as road allowance between part of Lot 2, Concession 7, and part of Lot 36, Concession 5, now Part 5 on RP 38R1152, as described in this report, to be surplus to municipal needs. And further, that the applicants provide a digital copy of the registrable survey completed by an Ontario Land Surveyor for the subject road allowance and conveyances in accordance with the road allowance closure policies and procedures. And further, that the applicant submit to the municipality a draft survey OLS of the lands that are subject to the request for closure and conveyance. And further, that the applicant shall provide an easement segment of the road allowance 10 meters in width by the entire depth of the road allowance to be described on the registrable survey in order to establish an access easement in favor of the abutting parcel to the west to the satisfaction of the manager of operations. And further, that council pass the closure and conveyance bylaws outlined in this report. And further, that the applicant provides a property valuation report by a qualified person to determine the fair market value of the road allowance in accordance with the road allowance closure policies and procedures, and such value form the purchase price of lands deemed surplus and to be conveyed. And further, that all costs and fees be paid by the applicant in accordance with the property valuation report and road allowance closure policies and procedures. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Go ahead, Councillor Butwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would have just let it go had you not caught that. What is happening to the remainder of the road allowance in between the portion that we are proposing to sell?
Mr. Warren?
Through the chair, can you clarify the question?
So I was having a look at the documents, and it would seem that on
To the north,
to the north,
it's still going to remain a closed road allowance.
it is. So it's only this portion.
This
So
is
it's
the
gonna be
only-
completely landlocked.
The area to the north is very sensitive environmentally.
Okay, then follow up if I might.
You may.
So sensitive environmentally, and it just stops at this line that at the depth of the lot that we're proposing of severing off. Could you explain perhaps how much farther north we could go? Is there any desire to buy up to the edge of it, or?
There was no desire except the 73 stipulated in the application.
So only requesting the depth?
And when we looked at it, and when staff conducted actually, I think 2 site visits, it was determined that north of that 73 meter mark, it tends to get a little thick with vegetation and probably not all that desirable.
Okay. We have a really slow internet here. I'm just, I'm looking at the land title system with the overhead, and I'm just wondering, let me have if you would bear with me. There we go. So it would seem that it's just a tree line at the edge of a field, perhaps? Actually, I'm not even terribly sure. Yeah, I can see there's a waterway that goes through it, but there is potentially. Okay, well, if that's all. Anyway, thought I would ask the question because it does create a landlocked portion. Is that something that, are we making the decision that that remaining portion is never going to be sold? Because of its environmental sensitivity? Because it doesn't appear to show that. Other than we can see there's a river that runs through it. But
Through the chair, it's not that you're making a decision tonight necessarily on to never sell it.
Okay,
It's just the request is for the 73 meters to be sold.
okay, thank you.
Thank you both. Anything further from members of council? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion is carried. Next is item 6.4, consent B03 2025 14861 Little Lake Road. The applicants are Benjamin Muzurek and Lauren Quinto. I have declared a conflict of interest on this, and I, Madam Clerk, have registered that with the iCompass system. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to call for a nomination of a council member. That the council nominate Councillor Jeff Wielden as chair for item 6.4 of the agenda. All in favor? Oh, sorry. Moved by Hannah, or sorry, Councillor McLaughlin, and seconded by Councillor Rowley. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, Councillor Wielden.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So this evening, we have a public meeting regarding consent application file number B03-2025. Purpose of the public meeting is to request a decision from council on the proposed consent application. Ms. Brentnell, by what method and on what date was notice of the consent and application given?
Good evening. The consent was sent in mid-May, and at this portion, we were hoping to ask for a deferral for this particular application. So we had submitted to the clerk a motion, and if I may read to the group, it is the hope that council may defer consent application B03-2025 pertaining to 14861 Little Lake Road until such time as staff can confirm and advise council on matters regarding minimum distance separation calculations, property standards, and implementation zoning. I may read the letter of objection if permitted by the chair.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Anderson and members of council, my husband and I live at 14837 Little Lake Road, immediately west of the subject lands noted above. We do not object to the severance on the face of the consideration. However, in 2002, we were required to enter into an agreement with the municipality that was registered on title of our property in order to avoid considerations around minimum distance separation so that we could obtain a building permit. Clearly, the municipality no longer has these concerns given that the farm no longer contains livestock, and consideration that a new building lot immediately east of ours would further buffer our property from any farming concerns. We have asked the municipality through the Director of Planning to revoke the agreement and work with us to have it removed from the title on our property. Please defer this consent request until this 2002 agreement is revoked and removed for the title of our property. Should council choose to proceed with the severance without the revocation of the 2002 agreement, please consider this as notice of our objection to proceedings with the severance that would create a buffer between our property and the farmlands. With thanks, Tammy Ostrander. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brindle. So the motion before us is that council defer application B03-2025 pertaining to 14861 Little Lake Road until such time as staff can confirm and advise council on matters regarding MDS calculations, conformity with the Clean Yards bylaw, and implementation zoning. Is there any discussion? Councillor Rowley.
I believe if we're deferring that there is no discussion.
Correct. My apologies. Motion to defer then. All in favor? That's, pardon?
Defer till when?
The next council. Okay. So this is deferring to the next council, and I counted 5 hands. That's carried. I can turn the floor back over to Mayor Ostrander.
Thank you, Councillor Wheeldon. And that ends our discussions in the statutory public meeting. And I have a motion moved by Councillor Butwell, seconded by Councillor McCausland, that council move out of the statutory public meeting June 16th, 2025 at 8:22 p.m. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion's carried. Thank you. Brings us to planning and development reports. The next report is 2025-75 automated speed enforcement bylaw. Bylaw Enforcement Officer Shepherd, we have read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Not at this time.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Rowley. The council receives a staff report number PD 2025-75 regarding the passing of a bylaw to establish an automated speed enforcement program within the municipality of Brighton, and secondly, to advise in amending the municipality's administrative monetary penalty system bylaw number 070-2023, and that council passes the automated speed enforcement bylaw as shown on this agenda, and that council approves the subsequent amendments to the administrative monetary penalty system bylaw number 070-2023. Is there any discussion? Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor. Once again, I just want to kind of express that I hope these automated speed enforcement cameras are well calibrated and that we are not going to fine people for 1 or 2 kilometers over. Thank you.
Thank you. That was not a question, but I think that staff.
Should it be a question?
I will tell you this. I am aware that there is a buffer, but I have told staff not to tell me what it is. because I probably have a big mouth.
I don't need to know what the buffer is either, as long as there is one. And as I say, I'm not sure how these machines are calibrated, but wondering if they're calibrated on a regular basis, as far as not every speed in every car is 40. So I just want to make sure that these things are reviewed on a very regular basis.
So I'll ask staff what the calibration levels are, and they can perhaps provide us with some information on that. And while they're having their sidebar discussion before they turn the microphone on, I will also say that on July 14th, I intend to post something like, if you get a speeding ticket for 45 kilometers an hour, come see me. We'll have a conversation with staff about that. Councillor Wheeldon. I bet you won't. Go.
Also, just want to point out that the administrative monetary penalty for this graduates by how many kilometers an hour over the limit you are. So if you're only a little bit over, it would be a small ticket compared to if you're quite a lot over.
Indeed, Councillor Butwell. We're discussing the motion. We're debating the motion. Yeah.
Okay, well, this is not a debate nor a question, but I think that our former counselor and friend would be very excited this evening. So
I concur. Today would be a good day for him. Do we have an answer to the calibration question?
Through you, Chair. So the cameras are self-calibrating, so it's not like it is with a normal photo radar, like with the police. That the police would use. The cameras are calibrated once a year and granted what's called a certificate of accuracy. That just confirms that they are essentially that they're accurate, and that certificate of accuracy is available on the municipal website for anybody to access, specifically when they're challenging a penalty order from an automated speed enforcement.
Thank you for that. Councillor Wright.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, two questions. One, I've lost my train of thought. Will the maximum speed through there change with, I think there's a new federal law coming for community zones in front of schools where it drops to 30 from 40? Is that what I'm understanding?
It'll be provincial. I think we're permitted to lower it to 30. I don't think we're required
We're
to.
required, okay, well, that's interesting. And two, will it be more accurate than the sign on Young Street? Because I noticed that no matter what car I'm in, there's like a 4-kilometer discrepancy between what I am doing and what is on the flashing sign as I'm coming in on Young Street.
I would suggest you get your speedometer calibrated.
It's both cars.
Get them both calibrated.
Well,
because mine is dead on accurate.
Is it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
But Mrs. O's is when her winter tires are on is about 3 kilometers slower.
Okay, I still do have my
But-
winter tires
Yeah.
on.
Any other questions or comments from members of council that aren't related to your own automotive maintenance issues? All those, go ahead, Councillor McCausland.
Sorry, maybe just for clarification, we don't get to know the leniency. Okay. Surprise, surprise.
But again, Councillor McCausland, if you or anyone you know gets a speeding ticket from Brighton in the automated speed enforcement system for going 45 or less, you come see me.
I drive with precious cargo all the time and I do
Understood.
not go over the speed limit.
Any further comments, Councillor Rowley?
We make our money, they're slowing down, so it's already served a purpose regardless, right? I think it's a good thing. Not everybody does, but I do.
I think it's a good thing too, and no doubt people visiting our new hotel will get fined, and that's okay. They're from out of town. Bylaw Enforcement Officer Shepherd, I saw you reaching for the microphone.
Through the chair, if I may, I just wanted to note, alongside with everybody's concerns, we have been training on the software the last 2 weeks. And one of the first vehicles that I came across was my own. So we have to all change our behaviors here. It's not just you guys, it is me as well. So moving forward, it's going to be a difficult change, but we can do it.
Councillor Butwell.
thank you, Mr. Chair. And that actually brought up a real question. So will the plates of our emergency services, both our paramedics and our fire department official vehicle on-call people, will they be exempt from these during actual call-ins?
Yes, they will.
They will?
Yes.
Municipal vehicles, are they going to be exempt?
I don't think they will. We want to know if our
Yeah.
employees are speeding through there.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
they will not.
I just want to clarify. I have heard rumblings out there on the street, and that just reminded me of it. So thank you.
Any Director, Bylaw Enforcement Officer.
Through you, Mayor, the Highway Traffic Act provides for exceptions for emergency vehicles while in performance of their duties. So the software that we are utilizing for automated speed enforcement does allow us to exempt some license plates while still monitoring their speed. So we still will get the same report that we would with any other vehicle, but it just wouldn't automatically go to the ticket stage, whereas it would with a vehicle that wasn't on that list. So we still have the ability to kind of monitor, and we can see if, speeding still is an issue from emergency vehicles, but they wouldn't go straight to the ticketing stage. It would kind of give us the discretion to review the situation and go from there.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. If I recall from a very long ago meeting, and there was discussion about staff having the ability to look at the license plates and individually remove them from the queue of actually reporting to the body that's going to issue the final ticket. Is that still accurate? Is there a double staff process to go through?
Through you, Mayor. So everything is done by Alan and I. The first, basically from the second that the photos come in from the camera, they come to us. We have to manually confirm the license plate. So they have an AI system that identifies the license plate or what it thinks the license plate is. We have to review that photo individually, ensure that it matches. It then goes to the next stage, which is when the MTO sends us that person's information, and then it automatically creates a citation. So the only people who have access is Alan and I. And if we remove any vehicle, we do have to have a reason. So there's a multitude of reasons: environmental, weather, sun glare, license plate is obstructed. So as of right now, I'm finding the most of them that are being removed are obstructed license plates or license plate covers and stuff like that. So if we were to, for example, remove one that we shouldn't remove, say a friend or a family member, there would be a written record of that. So hopefully that answers your question.
So I've just come to realize that you guys are already doing this. You're just not issuing the tickets. Sorry.
We're just training on the software, yes, just to get it ready for launch.
It's all part of the 90-day requirement by the MTO. Yeah. Yeah. So we're testing everything and moving forward that way. How long from the point of a photo to the point when someone would theoretically receive it in the mail?
It would depend on how many tickets we have in the system. Right now, based on the last 3 or so weeks, we have about 23,000. So Alan and I are currently training to try and speed our process up a little bit. We have 23 days, according to the province, to get those tickets out.
Or they become null and void?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Councillor McCausland, 23,000 is what she said. Councillor McCausland.
So I just want to make sure I caught you briefly. Did you say that we'll be getting them through email or through mail?
The post.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Thank you.
Post. Councillor Botwell, did you have another question?
I actually just was curious. So 23,000 individual infractions. Do we have an estimate on how much that actually converts to that people are having to pay in penalties?
Through you, Mayor, I can find that number for you. Right now, of course, we're not issuing any fines or anything like that. A lot of them, as well, is important to know, are repeat offenders. So we do have people coming through, 5, 10, 15 times.
Okay.
We do have a lot of really good data from our the company that we are using to implement the software. They give us a lot of really, really good data to work with. I don't have that number off the top of my head, but I can certainly get it to you.
I guess the idea is that they get the one ticket where they kind of swallow their pride and they don't get another ticket again. So although the
That's the
number
hope.
might initially be high, if we were to quantify all of these infractions, in actual fact, they might not have been repeat offenders.
Correct. And just the general intention of automated speed programs, is to reduce behavior through like penalty orders.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
what we're looking for is
Hoping is that.
if someone receives a penalty order, then that's generally altering the behavior moving forward. And then that's
Perfect.
ultimately what leads to safer roads.
Right. All right. Thank you very much.
And that's what we want. We want people to slow down on Elizabeth Street until such time as we can reconstruct the street and make it look like it should be a 40-kilometer-an-hour zone, which we know it's not designed for that at the moment. So we get all those things. Slow down, folks. That's all I got to say about that. Anything further on the motion? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion is carried. I think we'll call this Byron's Law. The next item on the agenda is 2025-95 Part Lot Control Exemption Application PLC 01 2025 Brighton Meadows Block 57 Plan 39M 960. McDonald Homes is the applicant. And Director Walsh, no. Yep, Director Walsh, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight, sir?
Nothing further, Mayor?
I have a motion moved by Councillor Wheeldon, and I'll need a seconder that council receives the staff report regarding an application for part lot control exemption as submitted by McDonald Homes pertaining to block 57, 39M 960, that council proceed to enact a bylaw to designate certain lands specifically described as block 57, plan 39M 960, not subject to part lot control, that council instruct the municipal solicitor to register the part lot control bylaw as enacted, and to prepare a transfer easement as applicable to parts 1 to 7 shown on reference plan 39R dash blank. Prior to registration of the part lot control bylaw, that prior to the registration of the reference plan, the manager of infrastructure confirms the appropriate width of a drainage easement, and that council resolves to receive and approve the final accepted version of the reference plan 39R dash blank for lands as being exempt from part lot control as illustrated and otherwise attached to this report. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Rowley. Discussion. I assume the blank will be filled in by the solicitor when it's registered.
That's correct. We're just looking for one last detail to get an accurate dimension of the drainage easement. And once that's confirmed, then the draft reference plan can be registered with a number, and then we'll go with the bylaw for its registration.
Thank you for that. Anything further from members of council? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Next item is 2025-99 land lease agreement between Donnelly Farms and the Municipality of Brighton. Director Walsh, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Nothing further, Mayor?
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that council receive the staff report pertaining to the municipality entering into a farmland lease agreement with Donnelly Farms, Inc., care of Kelly Sharp, and that council pass the agreement bylaw presented in this agenda, authorizing the mayor and the clerk to sign the agreement. Is there any discussion? Councillor Botwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you, I had a conversation with the Director of Planning earlier today about this lease agreement and where the amount of the agreement of $40 per acre came from. Seems to be a historical amount that had been paid to Mr. Russell, and went into a little discussion about the actual cost of leasing farmland. Because the kind of going rate for animal feed, so we'll call it, cow corn or hay or whatnot, we're looking at around $100 to $150 an acre, being the going rate in this area, this greater regional area. So I had a conversation about, doing the best that we can for the taxpayers whose money we use to purchase that land, and wanted to have a bit of a discussion about that as well around this circle, as well as if we could get some extra information as council as to when we would see actually potentially some shovels in the ground there, because that would also perhaps affect what kind of lease structure we would like to see. And I also had a question of clarification, because we're looking at April 7th, 2025. Has this agreement already been signed prior to coming to this table?
Not by me.
No? Okay. Okay, thank you.
So I think there were some questions in there, or maybe if you could, Director, enlighten us as to the answers you provided to Councillor Butwell so that we're all on the same page.
Yes, Mayor. So I concur that maybe the $40 per acre is a fairly low rate, but the interest was just to have some continuity from the previous arrangement with the previous owner. And then with the short period of the agreement, we can review those numbers at that time. Mr. Sharp has been cooperative in accommodating our interest to do some work on the lands, and we've been trying to coordinate scheduling that way. So we do have a licensed archaeologist to be on the site to do the necessary work there. Originally for the spring, but given the need to get on the land and get seed in the ground, etc., it turned to be better to get it done in the fall. So there's other works on the land that we need to coordinate and trying to work cooperatively with the needs of our tenant. So it's a fairly short-term lease, and then we take a look at the per acreage lease upon the renewal of the next agreement. And no, the April date was just in the original draft, and it's so nothing's been executed to this point. In terms of the other question about when we might see something happen more substantively with the property as intended, so the RFP still needs to be issued on that, and it'd be probably about a 1-year planning period, given significant public consultation along the way as well. And then after that, we would be looking at having a phased approach to the development of the parcels, and we'd be looking at a number of options that would be flowing through and informed by that process. So we could be looking at just doing it ourselves, taking on partners. We might be looking at the terms of reference currently say that there shall be a phased approach, so a block or precinct approach, and that design for each block and precinct, even at high level, shall be curated to have an efficient pattern throughout the whole of the subject lands. And that will allow us to do things in smaller phases. And then in terms of the business model and governance model section of the ARFP, Council may recall that being one of the items to be addressed. We'll be looking at a land lease option, like a long-term land lease option, in the interest of having things being kept affordable in terms of housing, and perhaps some community interest commercial, whether it's doctors' offices or daycares or what have you, whatever comes from the public engagement process as being important to the community. And so something that we want to advance in terms of our community interests. But ultimately the idea is that then the other option is, in terms of long-term land lease, might be direct sale. In the municipality of Red Deer, that was kind of the inspiration for this. They actually auction off individual lots, and they limit the number that can be sold at any one time to make sure that that development happens, first of all, and that it's a conversion of wholesale to retail level of access to the market, so that there's a diversity and a plurality of interests being addressed there. There's other places like Saskatoon, they have a separate development corporation with their land banking program. So that should be an option also looked at. And it just allows for more accountability for revenues and costs, and a little more focus on just running the program as opposed to trying it, be a Frankenstein, being, a little bit of everything. It can be a bit of a dangerous thing, but if it's a cost and revenue control center, then it might just have a tad bit more efficiency. But again, the RFP should inform us that.
Councillor Butwell, thank you.
Thank you again, through you, Mr. Mayor. So we have here what is being called a 1-year lease, but it's actually a lease that is 1.5 years and covers 2 full growing seasons. Was there any consideration to have the termination date of this lease be at the end of the season after harvesting and start a new lease for the following year? Because this actually gives 2 years at the old rate versus 1 year.
Director?
There was more consideration around the planting than the harvesting period. That seemed to be the priority for the farmer. So I have to, I guess the short answer, there wasn't a lot of discussion on that with the farmer in terms of the harvest period. Last year was corn. This year is going to be soy. Whether it's organic soy or soy for as forage, I don't know. Probably the latter, but and it might have a different time. They do like to keep it on to dry out, but there is an optimal harvest time, so there's probably some flexibility asked for there too. But I think the intention here is to have a shorter term with some have a renewal period that it coincides when we're ready to get it on the land and do some things with it.
Follow-up? So I'm okay to go ahead with what you have proposed. I would just ask that in advance of it expiring, that we perhaps look at what the actual market rate is for the land lease of farmland for this type of thing. I think that there's an opportunity with a fairly sizable portion that somebody else might be willing to pay closer to what the market rent is.
Thank you both.
I will put that on my calendar.
Appreciate that. Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Walsh, based on the comments you made previous regarding the RFP and building and those kind of things, I would imagine all of that still hinges on whether or not or when this will be officially part of our official plan as far as being outside the built boundary, right? So that could still take another year or two as well. I understand.
In the current draft of the RFP, that's one of the deliverables. So the intent is to bring the urban designation and bring in a zoning bylaw as well. So the official plan may have some special policies to give direction, because once we do sell some of the land, we want some continuity there and some direction for the who's ever building. So yeah, there will be some so one of the deliverables of the RFP is a site-specific OPA and ZBA, all of which will include urban standards.
Any consideration to requesting an MZO to expedite the process, or do we need the process expedited?
That's a good question. I never, I haven't had that thought recently, but if we can get a development plan on there first, it would be great, because I think we'll need some special policies there as we then sell off different blocks or parts of it. We'll want that development plan in place, but it might be worth considering actually. And so maybe that could be a discussion with whoever is successful winner of the RFP.
Thanks. No need to put the cart before the horse, but if we get a successful bidder to this and they're ready to go, we may have a wish to ask the minister to get involved and help make this happen faster for the purposes of affordability.
Yeah, I don't mind that idea.
Thank you. Trust that you'll bring that to us if the time comes. Thank you. Anything further on this motion? All those in favor? Being none opposed, that motion is carried. Next report is a summary discussion of Bill 5, Protect Ontario by Unleashing Our Economy Act 2025, and Bill 17, Protect Ontario by Building Smarter and Faster Act 2025. Director Walsh, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Nothing further to add.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor McCausland, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon, that Council receive the staff information report regarding a summary of 2 legislative bills that were given royal assent on June 5th, 2025. Bill 5, Protect Ontario by Unleashing Our Economy Act 2025, and Bill 17, Protect Ontario by Building Smarter and Faster Act. Is there any discussion? Councillor Wheeldon.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate this report very much, Director Walsh. I've been spending a lot of time, particularly with the Northumberland Intermunicipal Task Force on Housing and Homelessness, looking at the planning regime that we work within and the constant refrain in the media and whatnot saying that that municipalities are a bottleneck for development and that we need to build more homes faster. Certainly that's been the titles of all of these bills that have changed the Planning Act. And we've seen since these bills started coming out that housing starts have declined rather than increased. I was listening to someone discussing sludge in government, the idea that some things take too long or are too difficult. And I mean, people often call it red tape. But the discussion was talking about how the reason that things take so long, so much of the time, is because we don't often give staff the ability to actually make judgment calls and make decisions. And we've taken steps here in Brighton to delegate things to staff, and even some of the things that we're delegating to staff, there, as the mayor mentioned this evening, there was provincial regulation behind it. But what I see in the changes that you've noted here is a lot of taking away judgment and not leaving things up to the expert staff that we hire to make these decisions. And I've seen this firsthand as I do some work in real estate and working with planning departments elsewhere, is that oftentimes staff are requesting or requiring every possible study that might pertain to something because they do not want to be in a position to have made a judgment call on it and receive political blowback. And this is something that I've been hearing through the task force as well, is that we're hearing that municipalities and politics in general is not a safe place for staff to actually put their neck on the line by standing behind their decision without having studies upon studies upon studies to back it up. And what I see in this report is that there is a limit on how many studies that we can actually ask for. But then there's also a removal in many cases of that staff judgment call that might have in an environment with more trust in their expertise, staff judgment calls might have been to require less study because they're able to look at the decision on the ground and say, this is the only things that's needed here. And so what we're seeing here, I feel like, is we're seeing less trust in our staff, more requirement that they follow a provincially mandated line, that ultimately I think will end up causing further delays rather than expediting development. And so I find this very concerning and frustrating. And I want to make just a public bid so that everyone in our community understands that our staff are fantastic. They're excellent. They are experts in their field. They do a good job. They know what they're talking about. And if they are asking for a report or a study, it's because there is a provincial law that tells them that they have to. And if they're not asking for a report or study, it might be that there's a provincial law actually forbidding them from doing so. We mentioned tonight that this was the first time that we've had a shade study at Brighton. Well, in the report here, it indicates that those are no longer allowed. So it will be the last time we'll ever see a shade study here. So I want to say, let's do everything we can to uphold and support and promote our staff so that they know that when they make a decision, we respect that. And we've got their back in case the public doesn't respect that. If we can create a culture of trust in our municipality, we're going to get more homes built faster. And it's not going to be because a minister had to step in and tell our staff how to do their jobs.
Well said. Councillor Rowley.
Thank you. And I wholeheartedly agree with you, Councillor Wheeldon. However, we can trust our staff. And I do. So I'm not an expert at any of this. But we have a lot of residents in this town who will challenge what our staff do, and hence more LPAT appeals, right? So at the end of the day, you're catch-22. We can say, let's move ahead. But all we need is one or two people to say, we heard some today for the same reason. Are we going to expedite everything, or are we just going to hold everything up at a tribunal?
And let's not forget that the citizenry no longer has right to appeal. for better or worse, right? For better or worse. I mean, there's lots of good reasons why they should have right to appeal. And lots of good reasons why the province made the decision they made too, at the end of the day. Councillor Butwell.
Thank you. I actually was going to remark on the requirement, the shade study that we had, was it voluntary? Did they offer it up or did we?
The council, no, it was staff who said we need to have this study.
Okay, because my question was.
You used your professional judgment?
Correct.
Weird.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So I was just saying, it sounds, my comment here was the requirement of a shade analysis study in your report. I was going to ask the question earlier, but they didn't want to hear about this report. So it can no longer be mandatory. It's not left up. Okay. And is the reason that we requested it this time because we knew that there was going to be some pushback and yeah.
Well, I think with height being so much an obvious issue here, I mean, it's the only reason why we had a zone amendment in front of council, that we had to deal with some height issues. And so the sun shadow is a common requirement when you're dealing with height questions, particularly where it might land in a private amenity area. So it's how much shade are you imposing on somebody's backyard? That's a common issue. But also, how much shade are we going to have on our sidewalk and things like that. So those are not uncommon issues.
I guess with shade in the wintertime on sidewalks, you could get melt and then freeze and all of
Right.
that.
We heard about passive solar in some of the remarks as well. So these are, and yet under section 2 of the Planning Act, energy conservation is an issue. So no issue is isolated from each other. So they tend to relate. So instead of, I really don't know how the province is going to ultimately implement this, because it might be that we want a section 3.3.1 study of the provincial planning statement. It's their statement. We're just asking you to respond. And then from there, we will specify terms of reference. And that's, so there's different ways of addressing this. I'm just surprised that they're scrutinizing this level of detail provincially. But I guess we don't know what happens in all jurisdictions, and maybe it is a problem. I don't know.
Were the just as an aside, an extra question, when the retirement home, when they were wanting to go higher, they did go higher though, did they not?
Yeah, they did go a little bit higher.
Higher.
And they pushed the building back to the west downslope to basically address some of the height issues to the neighbor to the north.
Which is the same type of thing we might have liked to see on this one, to move it a little bit further from the residential.
Yeah, for this one, they have the hazard separation distance from Juro Propane and the industrial park. It has a 335 meter hazard radius, and by regulation, they have to have a maximum density within that radius. So that was also pushing this hotel north towards the street.
It was, okay.
Yeah.
A follow-up there, not on this item, but something just came up. So, thank you. I'd not heard that before. 335 meter from Juro's because of the volume that they carry in that facility there south of the tracks.
Yes.
Is that going to affect our wishes, what we see over in the other properties there?
No,
Okay.
it falls short of that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, I did look for that for sure.
Anything further from members of council on the report and the motion? All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion is carried. There are no items for information purposes. That brings us to unfinished business. This was a motion brought forward from the June 2nd council meeting regarding the Intermunicipal Task Force on Housing and Homelessness, Northumberland Housing Solutions Workshop, Summary and Recommendations Report, and action items. It's moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson. Clearly written by Councillor Wielden. Whereas Ontario and Northumberland County are experiencing a severe housing shortage crisis where affordable and attainable housing options are increasingly limited for residents across the housing continuum. And whereas the Intermunicipal Task Force on Housing and Homelessness was established by resolution of lower tier municipal councils across Northumberland County in late 2023 to address these pressing housing challenges. And whereas the task force recently convened a housing solutions workshop on February 28th, 2025, bringing together diverse stakeholders, including developers, builders, real estate agents, lenders, municipal planners, building officials, and elected officials to identify barriers to housing development and recommend solutions. And whereas the task force has released its Northumberland Housing Solutions Workshop Summary and Recommendations Report that identifies key challenges and provides specific recommendations to accelerate housing development across Northumberland County. And whereas lower tier municipalities across Northumberland County are currently undertaking official plan reviews, presenting a timely opportunity to incorporate housing solutions identified in the report. And whereas coordinated action across municipalities is essential to implement the report's recommendations effectively and efficiently. And whereas time is of the essence to address these barriers to develop while official plan reviews are underway, providing a unique opportunity to align planning policies with housing needs. Now therefore be it resolved that Council receive the Northumberland Housing Solutions Workshop Summary and Recommendations Report for information, and that Council directs senior planning staff and the Chief Administrative Officer to participate in a Northumberland County Housing Implementation Strategy session to review the document and to provide written feedback to the task force no later than October 1st, 2025, specifically identifying actions to be taken at the municipal or intermunicipal level that address the identified challenges within the report, and actions that align with any initiatives already in progress at the municipal or intermunicipal level, and specific zoning bylaws and official plan amendments that could be implemented that increase flexibility and accelerate housing development. And the Council directs staff to consider the recommendations from the Northumberland Housing Solutions Workshop Summary and Recommendations Report and the action items from the Northumberland County Housing Implementation Strategy session in the ongoing official plan review process, with particular attention to increasing flexibility in municipal planning, streamlining processes for repeat development, and strengthening communication in planning processes, and that the mayor send a letter on behalf of council to the Intermunicipal Task Force on Housing and Homelessness, expressing support for their collaborative approach and commitment to addressing the housing crisis in Northumberland County. Is there any discussion? Councillor Wheeldon.
Thank you for reading all of that, Mayor. I did not write it. I zhuzhed it a little bit, but it was Councillor Holloway Wadwani who was the primary author. The short version is when we had the Housing Solutions Workshop, we had all of those wonderful people who are part of that process in every way around the same table, and they came up with a lot of solutions. A lot of them were things that we're already doing here, and a lot of them were things that we're not doing here, but they're already doing in Cobourg or Trent Hills or somewhere else. And so the idea was that as we move forward on solving these challenges, we try and do it in a way that aligns us with each other, because a lot of our builders and developers are working across the county. And we heard from developers who were saying, I built this house 17 times in Port Hope, but I got to go through the whole process all over again because I crossed a line into Cobourg. And the processes are very different there because they're at different stages in updating their official plans. They have different internal policies. And so a lot of the requests that we were hearing from the development community about how could they do this more efficiently and effectively came down to, can we get a clearer sense of what the rules are, and can they be more like each other? And then as we were looking at how do we want to prioritize these solutions in our communities, the feedback we were getting in particular from Northumberland County was, can we talk about it? Can we coordinate? And so that's what this motion is about, is asking our folks to connect with everyone else and see what's the low-hanging fruit that we can all be working on together in a semi-collaborative fashion at least. I hope that makes sense.
Thank you for that explanation. Any further discussion on the motion, Councillor Rowley?
Thank you, Mayor. Seeing how you sit at the county level for us, do you see this as something down the road, maybe being something that this whole homelessness task force is kind of just comes under the umbrella of the county? So all of these extra as you say, specifics or rules or bylaws that we need, that they would just all come from, seeing how they override our official plan more or less anyway, right? Or they don't override it, but I mean, they have to approve some of that as well. Would that be something that at some point for this specific, not subdivisions or anything like that, but just for this homelessness task force, do you see something like that just being kind of taken over by the county?
This is not the homelessness task force. This
Is
is
it?
coming out of the intermunicipal task force for housing and homelessness, which was that
kind of.
So that's not our homelessness task force. That's
know.
that intermunicipal one.
Right.
So County of Northumberland does coordinate, manage homelessness issues through social services and housing issues. This was to coordinate efforts intermunicipally that aren't currently being coordinated at the county because it's not the county's responsibility to do so. So you're asking, would one day we upload that to the County of Northumberland? Well, that would be entirely up to 7-member municipalities and county council if that was the wish to create that kind of shared service or uploaded service. Councillor Wheeldon.
I mean, that question was asked at the task force table as well. And the overwhelming response is that nobody wants to amalgamate, nobody wants to upload. Each municipality has its own character and needs and concerns. And so but working together collaboratively in ways that respect our differences takes a little bit more work. So that's what this motion is asking is, are we willing to do the work and direct our staff to do the work of collaborating so that there's clarity on how each municipality is moving forward and that we aren't going in opposite directions, maybe to the detriment of our efficiency of new builds.
And the more we do this kind of thing, the more one day a council will go, well, we've already really uploaded this. We might as well just sign on the dotted line. That's not today. We're just not there yet. Anything further on the motion? All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion is carried. That brings us to bylaws. The first bylaw is part lot control. It's moved by Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Rowley. The council gives a bylaw. It's for second and third reading and finally passes on this date. Being a bylaw under the provisions of section 50 sub 5 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, Chapter P13 is amended, designating certain lands situated in the municipality of Brighton, specifically described as Block 57, Plan 39 M960, not subject to part lot control. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion is carried. Next bylaw is with regard to a road closure. It's moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Councillor McCausland. The council gives a bylaw. It's for second and third reading and finally passes on this date, being a bylaw to stop up, close, and sell a portion of an unopened road allowance, comprising a portion of the road allowance between part of Lot 2, Concession 7, and part of Lot 36, Concession 5, now Part 5 on RP 38R1152. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion is carried. The next is a bylaw with regard to a land lease agreement between the municipality of Brighton and Donnelly Farms. It's moved by Councillor Butwell, seconded by Councillor McCausland. That council gives a bylaw. It's for second and third reading and finally passes on this date. Being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and the clerk to execute an agreement between the corporation of the municipality of Brighton and Donnelly Farms, Inc., care of Kelly R. Sharp, regarding the use of municipally owned lands for the purposes of normal farming practices on the property located at lots 31 and 32, Concession B, described as parts 1, 3, and 5 on reference plan 39R 12408 in the municipality of Brighton in the county of Northumberland. Is there any discussion? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion is carried. Next bylaw is implementing zoning bylaw for 129 Elizabeth Street. It's moved by Councillor Wright, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson. The council gives a bylaw. It's for second and third reading and finally passes on this date. Being a bylaw under the provisions of section 34 and 36 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, to amend bylaw number 140/2002 as otherwise amended, of the corporation of the municipality of Brighton as it applies to the lands located at 129 Elizabeth Street, being part lot 33, concession B in the municipality of Brighton. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Are there any opposed? That motion's carried. Next bylaw is with regard to automated speed enforcement. It's moved by Councillor Wielden, seconded by Councillor McCausland. The council gives a bylaw. It's for second and third reading and finally passes on this date, being a bylaw to monitor, regulate, and enforce motor vehicle speeding by automated speed enforcement within identified school zones and community safety zones throughout the municipality of Brighton. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. And a bylaw amendment to the AMPS bylaw. It's moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Wright. The council gives a bylaw. It's for second and third reading and finally passes on this date. Being a bylaw to amend and update bylaw 070-2023, a bylaw to implement an administrative monetary penalty system in the municipality of Brighton. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion is carried. That brings us to question period. Is there anyone in the gallery that has a question with anything that appeared on tonight's agenda? Come on forward, Ms. Perry.
I'm Debbie Perry. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm just wondering if, I know in some areas where there's speed enforcement cameras, they have a sign with the posted fines for going X amount of kilometers over. I'm wondering if that's something that has been considered. You know, if people start to see a dollar amount attached to the speed, they might be a little more inclined to adhere closer to the speed.
Question, and we're required to put a sign up saying there's a speed camera ahead, but I'm not sure that we're required to do anything else, but it's not a bad suggestion. Bylaw enforcement officer, what's the plan?
Through you, Mayor, I don't think there's any plans at this time for a sign of that design, only because it's not super straightforward what the fines are. So there's a couple components. There's the actual penalty amount based on your speed, but then there's also a victim fine surcharge that's added to that as well. So the province takes a portion of that for the Victims Justice Fund, and it goes towards victims of crime. So I don't know that we could make a sign that would be like particularly accurate. Also, there's so many different tiers, so it's like it goes, I think, between like every 5 kilometers it changes. So it would be a pretty busy sign. I think we would be competing with the idea of whether or not it's safe if people are reading that when they're driving. But we could potentially look into something along that.
I wasn't aware of that because I think like the ones on the highway, it's got, I think, like 4 different speed parameters.
Yeah, I think we definitely could probably look into something like that. And if we're choosing, 3 or 4 specific speeds, and I mean, I guess you can assume anything between that's going to be an amount between that. So we can definitely look into that.
All right, thank you.
Good suggestion, thank you.
And I have one other, and it sort of ties in a little bit to that. I was driving along 64 the other week, and I don't go that way very often. I was not aware that the speed had changed on there. Can we put up signs notifying speed adjustment? Or it, like, you see that sign that says new. I did not honestly know that the 60 kilometers was extended. I still thought it was 80 along there.
So I checked into the new thing, particular to County Road 2, because we've extended the 60 zone there. County staff were unwilling under the parameters of the highway traffic. What is that called? The manual, I think they call it. Yeah, the Ontario Traffic Manual.
Okay.
Because they don't allow, the OTM doesn't suggest new signs according to Public Works
Okay.
staff. So I think they have added on Highway 2 or County Road 2, I think they have added a 60 kilometer ahead zone sign.
Okay.
We certainly look into that for 64 as well.
Yeah, because as I said, I went through there at 80. I did not realize that it had changed, so.
I've made a note. I'll ask county
Okay.
staff to do that because that's a county road.
All right,
Yeah,
thank you so much.
You bet. I had a question that just hit my head, but it's gone now, so I'll send you an email. I'm looking at Paul because I think it was for Paul, but it doesn't matter. Anyone else with a question with regard to anything on tonight's agenda? Why not? We're 9:16 now. What do you got?
Just some quick math. Based on what I'm seeing here with that number 23,000 that was sent to us earlier, or was said earlier. If everyone did 5 kilometers over that buffer zone, and at $5 per kilometer would be the fee, it's $575,000. Plus whatever surcharges from the.
Which would go to the surcharges tend to go to the province
Yeah.
anyway. We don't get that money, but
Yeah.
interesting stats, and it certainly confirms what former councillor Fredis was telling us about. So again, our hope is that people slow down. It's not our wish to be collecting $500,000 every 3 weeks. But property taxes will go the right way if we do. Anything further from anyone? Takes us, there's no in-camera session. That brings us to our confirmatory bylaw moved by Councillor McCausland, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon, that council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading. And finally passes on this date, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the corporation of the Municipality of Brighton planning meeting held on June 16th, 2025. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. And a motion moved by Councillor Wright, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that the June 16th, 2025 council planning meeting adjourn at 9:16 PM. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. Leaving here tonight, let us continue to serve our community as we stand united, strong, and free, and may God